pretty lies. Look me in the face. Tell me that you love me, even if it's fake.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Desert Hawk Airsoft. My name is Asmer, and today I wanted to start a series, one of many, where we are able to share different aspects about Airsoft. And this series, I wanted to kind of focus on several different topics that may not be super well covered in the airsofting scene, that we can get some opinions of Desert Hawk Airsoft members, including myself, some of my teammates, as well as even local Utah Airsoft players, and hopefully in the future, opinions of people all across the nation and maybe even the globe. So we'll see how that goes. But today, I wanted to kick it off and kind of tackle a complex discussion that's seen a lot in the airsofting world, and that is whether or not airsoft is a sport. Now, I know that's a really big one and it's really complex, but in my 4 years of airsoft, I think I've developed my opinions, and I think I've kind of developed an idea that I am willing to share, and create a platform for people to discuss their own understanding of what I'm providing. So if you would like to start a discussion in the comments below, that'd be wonderful. I'm all about facilitating discussion and facilitating people, gaining a better understanding of the world around them. So before we start, I would like to place a quick disclaimer. These opinions are entirely my own. While they may have been built up from me looking at different sources and combining them with my own thought process, the opinions that I am about to share with you are not anyone else's but mine. They're not my team members. They are not my teams. They are in no way affiliated with any organizations that I am associated with or have been in association with in the past or will be in association with in the future. So these opinions are my own. Take that for what it is. But anyway, here we go. Tackling the big question, is airsoft a sport? Now this one is complex, but the straight answer, the simple answer that I'm going to give you is yes, but technically no, but technically yes. See, like I said, it's a little complex. So I'm going to kind of break this video down into separate kind of manageable sections and then kind of tie it all up in a neat little bow to make sense of this whole big mess of a topic. So with me today, I have my big Webster's dictionary. This isn't the newest Webster's dictionary I have, but it is the biggest. And so for effect, I've brought it out today. So with this dictionary, I want to crack open to a page with a definition on it that will help us define airsoft and see whether or not it's a sport. And if you haven't already guessed, that definition is the word sport. So if we use this definition, we can draw some parallels and maybe even some differences between airsoft and the general definition of what a sport is, and kind of get a greater understanding of how airsoft relates to the word sport and if it is indeed a sport. So if we go down to the bottom of this page, right here, I have marked the definition for sport. First, it is a noun, meaning active play or a game, etc., taken up for exercise or pleasure, and sometimes as a professional engagement, and in parentheses it says football, golf, bowling, swimming, etc. are considered sports. The second definition included under the noun section is fun or play. So with those two definitions, we can get a general understanding of what people consider to be sports. I would like to go back to the first definition and really kind of break it down into chunks. So we have active play or a game, etc., taken up for exercise or pleasure, and sometimes as a profession. And it includes the examples of football, golf, bowling, swimming, etc. So, right, you can see, namingly, airsoft is not included in the albeit short list of what is considered sports. Now, this division where it says sometimes as a profession, taken up sometimes as a profession, I think is where the important division between most people's opinions on whether or not airsoft is a sport kind of exists. That's where our schism in belief systems sort of happens. So let's look at the first part of this definition, not including the section of profession, and break it down. Active play, a game, etc., taken up for exercise or pleasure, right? So straight there, right? If we apply that section of the definition directly to airsoft, well, let's think. What do we do? What do we do in airsoft? We take plastic guns and we shoot each other with them, and we run around a field, whether it be indoor or outdoor, and we develop several different styles of play, and most people do it for enjoyment. At least I would hope you play airsoft for enjoyment. And there's also a little bit of cardio that we get out of all the adrenaline and all of the heart racing, intense moments that we get from airsoft, right? So we have that exercise and we have that pleasure. So there we go. By basic definition, airsoft is a sport, but there's a second section that sometimes people leave off or some people focus on intensely. It says, and sometimes taken as a profession. Yeah. So we look at different sports like football, lacrosse, soccer, or the Europeans call it football again. So American football, European football, soccer, all those different sports, right? People engage in those sports not only in a casual sense, purely for exercise and pleasure, but they also, in some cases, engage in them on a professional level. Organized leagues are built and are maintained with consistent rule sets that allow people to make money off of recognition for their skill in that sport. This is where airsoft kind of lacks in that definition of a sport, right? If we look at this first part of the definition of the word sport, this is more of a casual meaning of the word sport. So I like to define airsoft personally, and this is where we're reaching our first conclusion here. I define airsoft personally, based on this definition, as a casual sport. And this is where the schism happens. There's a difference between a casual sport and a competitive sport. A casual sport is the sport that is partaken in primarily for the means of pleasure and exercise. But the competitive sport is where some sports are engaged in for recognition and for professional reasons. And this is where we get sponsorships, organized leagues, consistent nationwide rule sets, that sort of thing. This is where we get competitive sports is where we get the very organized, very highly organized, very consistent, performance-based, engagement of sports. And airsoft, in many cases, lacks that professionality, that organization, and that consistency that would elevate it from simply being a primarily casual sport to being both a casual sport and a competitive sport, like most sports such as swimming or water polo or competitive diving or lacrosse or football. Any number of sports could be listed as both competitive and casual sports. So that's where the division, I believe, happens in most of the opinions of the airsoft community, is whether or not it should be considered a sport if it's not competitive. So it is my personal belief that airsoft primarily is a casual sport, and in its relatively short lifespan compared to most other sports existing, has not yet developed into a competitive sport. Mind you, I said yet. It is my firm belief that in the near future, and possibly if not then, a little bit farther in the future, that airsoft will develop into a competitive sport. I find it inevitable that it will reach that level in its development. And the reason is, you look at a similar sport, paintball. Now I know paintball has many differences, not only in the ammunition, the guns, the uniform styles, the play styles, right? But there's something that developed over time with paintball that has kind of turned it into this competitive sport that also has a casual side to it, right? And what that is consistency. There are consistent rule sets based on consistent fields with consistent player numbers and consistent scoring systems that consistently and accurately rank players based on their skill relative to their peers and their teams. So these teams can group together and organize into leagues that compete for recognition and often like sponsorships and payments in this professional sense, in this organized form of play. So paintball, while it started out as a primarily casual sport similar to Airsoft, has developed a competitive segment to it that has, constantly gained in popularity. It's become more popular and more widespread both in America and in some places around the world. It is my firm belief that a similar trajectory, is going to be seen in Airsoft. Airsoft is a highly diverse sport, and I think that compared to paintball, there are a lot more possibilities of what can happen and what can be done with Airsoft, just because of several factors that I would love to go into in a later date, but those will take a long time to go over. So I would rather focus on just kind of the broad sense. But Airsoft is a very diverse, very versatile kind of sport with many play styles, many niches within the whole market in general, and it's entirely possible that many one or many different versions of an organized competitive aspect of the airsofting sport could develop in the near future. So as it stands now, let's close this dictionary, right? Because we don't need that definition anymore. As it stands now, Airsoft is a sport, but it is a primarily casual sport that is taken up mostly in the sense of a hobby for most people, an activity that people do in seeking pleasure or exercise, right? But in the near future, I believe that Airsoft, as a hobby, as an interest, has the capability of evolving into both a competitive and a casual sport as it exists today. So hopefully in the future we see some of those changes, but that is, in my opinion, whether or not Airsoft is a sport. I hope that you enjoyed this somewhat complicated and weird convoluted rant, but if you would like to see more of us, please don't hesitate to leave a like, and if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and ring that bell so you get a notification every time we post a video, right? We want to release this information regularly and kind of give our 2 cents on the airsofting world so that you can take sources from other places as well as ourselves and develop a better, brighter understanding of the airsofting world around you as it changes and as it develops, rather rapidly in the current age. So I would like to thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you guys next time. Peace.